Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Ladies in Leadership. And today we have a very exciting guest joining us. Just a quick reminder about our channel. We're all things empowerment and leadership for women. And this is linked more to the topic of building confidence, building resilience, mental well being, and self care. And the topic of today's episode is called Dare to Accept Yourself. So it's about self acceptance. And we have the lovely Dipanshi. Hi, Dipanshi.
Hello.
Uh, so a little bit about her. Dipanshi founded a non-profit organization called Rain on Me in 2018 after living with generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, PTSD, and ADHD for more than a decade. In the form of a free international peer support group, Rain on Me provides a safe, non judgmental space for anyone needing to vent their mental distress or work on their self growth. Their support meetings use therapeutic arts to raise self awareness and encourage acceptance and change. So, Dipanchi is an ambassador for the MQ Mental Health Research and a certified youth and adult mental health first aider as well. She has completed her postgraduate certificate in therapeutic arts and is now studying an MSc in person centered psychotherapy while also working with Mind as a senior support worker. Wow, Dipanshi, just in that introduction, I can see you've been through a lot, you've experienced a lot, but you've also done a lot, and you are growing as an individual so much and reaching out to so many people in such a beautiful, empowering way. So, is there anything you want to add to that introduction, or tell us a little bit more about Rain on Me as a non-profit?
Yeah, no, firstly, thank you so much for having me, and, giving me the opportunity to share a bit about my story as well and, learn a bit about your platform as well. So it's just such an honor to be here. And yeah, I started, Rain on Me, as in a small little room in East London, with, empty chairs, surrounding me. And I was in a place where I was just really struggling, trying to figure out, why I was struggling, basically because I didn't have any self-awareness that much at the time. And I just wanted to feel listened to and heard and feel accepted, which is why I started Rain on Me, and it turned into something, much greater than I could have ever imagined. And I feel supported, and I have the opportunity to support others with my experience as well. So yeah, that's kind of where it started from a humble beginning.
Yeah, and that's absolutely beautiful because it's something very meaningful for yourself as an individual, and then it's only grown and developed, and you've been able to do something so beautiful with the concept, and obviously, like I said, reach other people, and as a movement to help other people as well, which is really moving to hear and listen to your story. So today's topic, obviously, you've told us a little bit about what you've been through and what your journey, how it started, and how it's progressing. Like I said, we're going to talk about self acceptance. So, really coming to terms with what is going on with you, what you've been through, what your strengths and weaknesses are, really owning your journey so far, and then developing that as a consequence into really becoming the best version of you and the personality that you were meant to be. So let's have a little bit of a chat about that. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what does self-acceptance actually mean to you? And how is it linked to self-awareness as well?
Yeah, I think, well, I didn't have much self-awareness growing up. I was just walking through life oblivious to the fact that my actions actually have consequences. And they have a long-term effect on me and also the people around me, people I care about, and people, random strangers that I'm still touching their life in some way by my actions. And I didn't notice the moments where I thought I was just having fun, being rebellious. But actually I was self-sabotaging. And there were moments that I look back at now and I realize how toxic of a person I can be. I still can be, even if I've achieved some level of self awareness. But I think after my diagnosis of all the lists that you've already mentioned, especially with OCD and GAD, I've been forced to self-reflect and really try to look back at my life and my choices. And I've had to learn to be more self-aware. And I think I sometimes think if I had that level of self-awareness before when I was younger, I would have realized, what I was mentally going through earlier, and I would have probably asked for support earlier. So yes, self-awareness has genuinely opened my eyes to myself, more importantly than anything else. Um, and of course, with self-awareness, you have to take time to learn more about yourself, your triggers, why you are being triggered by certain things, what weight you are still carrying around with you. What are your strengths? What are the things that you overcame that you never gave yourself credit for? And yeah, you begin to really see yourself for all that you were, all that you are, and you can be. And eventually, you forgive yourself, you accept yourself, you celebrate yourself in whatever way it's needed. And I think that's when you reach the stage where you begin to trust yourself. And that's the key thing, learning to trust yourself. Um, yeah, but I do have to say though that we are ever changing, ever always growing, and our needs and circumstances are always changing as well. So with that, of course, our belief in ourselves and our capabilities will also, go up and down. So I don't think it's possible to be self-accepting all the time, and expecting that from yourself would be very unfair. And you can't bully yourself into loving yourself, because that just beats the whole purpose of it, doesn't it? So I think it's a lifelong process, something we have to practice every day, and that's completely okay. That's part of it, and it's just part of the human experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for giving us so much depth into your experience of self-acceptance and self-awareness. And I totally agree with you. It is a lifelong journey, and it does require getting to a certain point of realizing that you've not been acknowledging yourself in certain ways. It's almost like there's an expectation to be a certain way, or how you're being perceived by others, or fulfilling a role, maybe to fit the expectations of others, like I said. But until you get to the point that actually, what am I feeling? Who am I? What do I need? What do I want? And what are my behaviors? And really dissecting that to the point of that self realization, and then self acknowledgement, honoring yourself, to the point of actually loving yourself enough to know that it's okay. You're on a journey. Everybody's going through a journey, and you don't have to be perfect all of the time, right? Especially if you've got like really high expectations of yourself, or you've been brought up in an environment of really high standards. You're constantly trying to like get that position, or that seal of approval from people, like even your own parents. But when you actually break that down, back down to yourself, and really honor yourself at a very deep level, I agree that then you take it in a sort of a staged process, that it's okay if if today I'm not feeling my best, but I'm working on myself constantly to improve myself in terms of well, my relationship with myself, and obviously that absolutely affects your relationships with others, your opportunities. Also honoring yourself, like I would say, for all the accomplishments that you've had. So often in life, it's so easy to sort of deflect compliments or deflect things that are amazing about you, and just think, oh, it doesn't really mean anything, or it's not such a big deal. But actually, it really helps to build one's confidence, and it's really important that we do honor ourselves for our journey so far, and all the things that we've achieved, and to then provide that to other people as well. Which brings me on to my next question, really, which is about how does self acceptance help with developing that self confidence, which is so important. And Ladies in Leadership is very much about helping people build their self confidence to a point of fulfilling their potential. So let our viewers know how self acceptance is really prominent to building that self confidence.
Yeah, yeah, it's what really comforts me is believing that in the idea that the universe doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And if life is throwing something at you, good or bad, it means that you already have all the inner strength you need uh, within you to, overcome the situation. And as I mentioned before, with self acceptance comes trust within yourself, and that trust fall exercise where you let yourself fall because you know for sure you'll be caught and saved, and that's basically what you have to do with yourself. And it's obviously not as easy as it sounds, especially if you've been in a cycle of self-doubt and loathing, and it's particularly difficult if you're trying something new and you have no idea. Just take that leap of faith, uh, and you tell yourself, I have no clue what I'm doing yet. It might take me a while, but I know I'll figure it out. And it comes back to that acceptance and trust that no matter how hard it gets, you know yourself enough to know that you'll manage. So yeah, it's all very much interlinked. That 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 self-awareness needs to come first, then the self-acceptance, and then you empower yourself enough to know that you know what, I'll be fine because I know myself and I can do this.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's definitely a journey. The self-awareness is that clarity phase, isn't it? When you really, like I said, look at your life, look at your behaviors, look at your triggers, look at your responses to your triggers in your past, and then you develop to the point of self acceptance, accept everything that's happened, and then what you want to create from that level of self-acceptance into a place of growth where you become empowered to really create. You go from sort of just being to a doing state in life. So rather than going from like an autopilot, just accepting whatever is thrown at you, to a point of actually challenging things, creating boundaries, and creating the life that you want for yourself. So just a few things that I'll add to that is something I thought of earlier was about when they say that you are not your thoughts. So whatever thoughts are sort of you're being absorbed by, or even are controlling you, it's a matter of stepping out of that sort of phase and being an observer of your thoughts, so they can't actually control you, especially if they're bringing you down. That's quite a difficult thing to do in reality. It's very easy to say, but to detach from the thoughts and empower yourself to observe, realize where they're coming from, realize if they're destructive or self-sabotaging, break away, and then empower yourself to do the opposite. And that really is within our conscious control. Another thing that I will say is that with the whole self-awareness thing, it's really good to get feedback of people that you trust, from trusted sources, because feedback is something that can really enlighten your blind spots, because everybody has blind spots, things that they can't see that other people can, and that's totally fine. So if you're getting particularly constructive feedback, which always has the intention of bettering you, and it's basically good for you, compared to opinion or judgment, which could not necessarily be nice. But if somebody's giving you constructive feedback, they're actually aiming to help you to be better. And it's if you identify people who can actually give you that constructive feedback, then that really goes a long way as well. And really just seeing failure as an opportunity to grow, because everybody has failures in their lives. Everybody has things that they wish happened differently, or they wish they'd done something differently if they, in hindsight. But really just seeing that, looking at the lessons and using that as an opportunity to grow, to be better, is really empowering as well, and helps you to develop and build on that confidence, that all important confidence in redefining your character and redefining who you are, what your purpose is, what your values are, and what you're trying to achieve in life. So that's really powerful. Thank you very much for that. Um, Now I just want to look at a little bit about, like I mentioned earlier on our channel, we talk about resilience quite a lot, because resilience is so important to help us to deal with whatever we're going through, whether that's personal related or professional related. And it's that bounce back mechanism that we all need when we are down, because life isn't unfortunately always going to be amazing, because that's the whole point of it, of it, why it's called a journey. I want to ask you how you feel that self-acceptance is linked to resilience, and and having having strong boundaries as a person.
Yeah, that's a yeah, this is a really interesting question for me because of the definition of resilience, because resilience is what gives people the psychological strength to cope with stress, hardships, and change. Um, and change is the only true constant in life, as they say.
Mhm.
Um, so, if we have these strong boundaries and tell ourselves, for example, this is who I am, this is how you have to be to stay in my life, this is what's triggering to me, so I have to stay away from it, etc. Um, you know, so how can we truly test our resilience if we shield ourselves from change or hardship or challenging, thoughts and opinions? And of course, it feels nice to be comfortable and safe, um, but I think real growth occurs right at the edge of comfort. And it actually goes back to what you were saying, asking for feedback, being open for feedback, being open to, constructive criticism. And, I'm not saying that boundaries are not important. They are good and, in fact, necessary to maintain healthy relationships with people around us. But this is a thing, it's not just us involved in these boundaries, we're in relation to others. So I feel like these boundaries need to be negotiable and open to change, not in a way that harm us, but these boundaries that we draw around us are there to protect us, not to imprison us. And it's not to keep us bound in a fixed state. And we already mentioned that we're always growing, always changing. Our needs are always changing. So we need room to grow, and that will only happen if you give yourself space to be open to change and new challenging ideas. So I think that's kind of, yeah, there's a lot more I can say about this, because I know that it might be a bit triggering, I guess, to some people to hear about, no, but I need strong boundaries. And that's great that, yes, we need boundaries, but at the same time, are these boundaries limiting us, or are they protecting us? Just trying to keep an open mind about it, because at the end of the day, resilience can only be tested and built within us if we feel a little bit, we push ourselves and keep ourselves open to change and open to different ideas and challenging ideas. So yeah, that's kind of the shortest way I can say it.
Well,
But I hope that makes sense.
yeah. Really interesting what you're saying, and it's really getting me to think as well. And I personally feel that it really does come down to that self-awareness and self-acceptance concept again, because once you've got that, you know yourself, you start to define what your values are. Once you start to live by your values, regardless of what you go through in life, that's your character, that they're the main sort of self-defining primary things that you live by. If you know yourself to that extent, you'll know automatically what your boundaries need to be. And boundaries sometimes don't come about just naturally from childhood. They actually come about from life experience, from being knocked down, from having your resilience challenged, getting out of your comfort zone, getting into the unknown, like you said, experiencing change at a level which can sometimes be very hurtful as well. So that's how these things sort of start to come about. And it really is the experience of different things in life that help us to build those values, those self-defining moments, and then to like I said, challenging ourselves to a point where we have to be resilient, where being anything other than resilient is not a choice. And then that brings you onto, actually, I'm not okay with this, or I am okay with this. And then you start to, I think it's a process, you start to develop and build soft boundaries, you test those boundaries, and then you align them to your values, and then you start to realize what they actually are. Because I feel like if you don't know your values, that's when you're open to other people's criticism, you're open to people's manipulation, you're open to people's judgment. But once you have defined your values and who you are, then you become less sort of unshakable, if you know what I mean. You become, sorry, more unshakable and less shakable by other people. So it's really important for you to have that in your own mind, because obviously we can't just stay in our own mind, in our own space. We need to go out into the world. We need to interact with people. We need to go to work. We need to experience different things, and that comes along with different personalities, and different things, sometimes challenging. So I agree. It's a matter of accepting yourself, learning to know yourself, which includes the values part, and then going out and experiencing and slowly building those boundaries. And then, like you said, making them known. They have to be known by other people because they affect other people. But it has to be to a point where it's not self-limiting, like you said, not self-sabotaging, uncomfortable for other people as well, or livable and realistic. And if you've got a really strong boundary that somebody cannot if somebody cannot honor that boundary, then obviously that person isn't right to be a part of your life anyway. So it's really about creating that filter process as you go through life. So yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for that. And the next thing I'm going to ask you is about, it's about really your journey, because I remember when we spoke the first time, and you did tell me that there was an element of, in the process of getting to the point of self-acceptance, there was shame and there was guilt about the things that you've been through, because you didn't necessarily understand them at the time, but obviously now you can reflect. So how in relation to that and what you're doing, the amazing thing that you're doing right now with Rain on Me, the amount of people that you've reached and are growing as we speak, how do you get from a place of that shame and guilt to a place of such leadership and leading change for other people?
Yeah, yeah, I think when I initially started my self-awareness journey, I guess it's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame came up especially when I thought about my past, and I think I was still able to forgive myself, forgive others for the wrong they did to me, but it was really, really hard for me to forgive myself. And I couldn't. It took me a really long time to, you know, accept and forgive the fact that I was tolerating the wrong in the first place. And also, it was difficult for me to really hold myself accountable and look at how I was being so toxic as well, and cruel to other people, uh, because I don't, the things that I've come up with so far is obviously because I was hurting so much myself that the only way I knew how to process that was to project it onto other people. And that's kind of, like how hurt people. And that's exactly what I was doing. And I shared these feelings in my group with my peers in our support meetings, who were going through similar struggles, and we were on a similar path. And they accepted me. They accepted all of me, and from their unconditional positive regard, which is something that we really talk about in person-centered therapy. From their unconditional positive regard came my own. And I was finally able to accept the darkest corners of my heart. And I don't, it doesn't mean that I've healed completely, And nor does that mean that I have to. I think I've found all the inner strength I need to overpower it and live with my past, and in fact channel it through empathy and showing acceptance to other people around me. So basically, what my group gave me, I'm simply paying it forward, and I'm just learning to, be myself and speak my truth and share my vulnerabilities without fear of judgment, fear of consequence, because I'm just being myself. And when you're being your authentic self, you inspire others to be themselves as well, because it's sadly still very rare, to, feel like, okay, I'm going to be myself and that's fine. Because like you said, especially, being women, or whether you're from, the BAME community, for example, or if you're coming from communities where maybe you've been told to be quiet for too long, or you're not allowed to speak back, or you're not allowed to question. um, you know that's why it's still rare, and I wish it wasn't, but it is. um, but yeah, you show them that you're not alone, that they are not alone in their trauma and struggles, and all this, along with your quirks and weirdness, it all deserves to be acknowledged, and celebrated. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and obviously I'll be on this journey for the rest of my life, and that's completely okay. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey with my shame and guilt. It still goes up and down, but again, it comes back to that self-awareness and self-acceptance,
Mhm.
that it's okay to have these feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really inspiring to just listen to you and to hear you speak so authentically, so honestly about your experience without fear of judgment. Being vulnerable is a difficult thing. It's difficult to fully, truly be seen exactly as you are. Often people are hiding behind things, or are trying to be perceived in a certain way, which goes away from who they are. But I think that only causes more sort of disruption to one's peace. And like you said, it's like a domino effect. Once one person does it, it then inspires another person to think, well, actually, it's okay for me to say exactly how I feel, or what I think, or what I want. And that's really, really powerful for people to do. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that experience. And I'm sure a lot of people can learn from that and get a lot from that to apply to their own lives as well. So, with regard to the leadership side, though, because you've really started and initiated a platform independently, and I know you've got like a support team with you now, and you're growing as we speak. How does that all fit in? How does that feel to you? Because it's the first time, obviously, you're leading something like as big as this. So, how's that been for you?
Terrifying. And I don't think I completely still know what I'm doing, to be honest. And I think that again comes back to that self-confidence thing, that I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I know I'll be fine. And so far I have been fine. I've been great, actually. Because yeah, it just comes back to that confidence thing. But yeah, I'm beyond surprised by how much support there is, if you go look for it, um, and how much your story can move people, and you don't realize that yourself, because obviously you don't give yourself enough credit. And there's also this, every time you speak highly of me, for example, in this situation, there's this little voice in my head saying, "Oh, I don't think you deserve this. Is, are we talking about the same person?" you know. But yeah, I think even then it's always like you have to give yourself credit for what you've achieved, and it's okay to take that credit because you've earned it. Um, but yeah, when I think what I would say about leadership is that I was really afraid that no one would turn up that day. That first day I went into that empty room, and when people did start arriving, I was like, oh my God, what if I say something stupid? What if there's silence? What if, basically? And obviously, with my obsessive thoughts and my anxiety, didn't help either. Um, But I think once you overcome it and you say, well, what if it goes great? What if people really like me? And what if they listen to me and they understand and they don't judge me? So it's kind of just trying to shift that mentally, that if there's space for negative thoughts, there's absolutely space for positive thoughts as well. And they're both equally valid, in fact. And obviously we're going to have them because we're human. We're not meant to be perfect. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say about leadership, that don't be afraid of yourself and don't let yourself sabotage yourself, because that is genuinely what I've seen, that there's nothing else holding me back other than my own mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so empowering, so powerful actually, because it's so true. You don't even yet know what your full potential is, and the way that I go about it is literally just being intuition led. So there are fears, there are things, that anybody would worry about, but if you just keep following your intuition, it will guide you and it will take you to bigger and better places, and then you'll look back and self-reflect and you'll surprise yourself. And on our channel, we've done quite a few live recordings now about like empowerment, getting out your comfort zone, leading regardless of fear, showing vulnerability, and just being yourself. So this is really fitting in terms of the topics that we've been doing previously. And you're right, it's all your limitations are in your own mind, so you've got to get out of that bubble and allow yourself to be that best person, because there's so much more to you than you even know yourself. So it's so beautiful to see somebody feel the things that you feel, which everybody feels. Some people may not say that they feel them, but they probably do. um, and just being yourself anyway, allowing yourself to grow in a very, I love the fact that you've done it in a really natural way as well. It's not forced, it's not rushed, it's not like you're not giving it a time limit. You're not trying to reach any particular number or statistic. You're just being yourself. And the growth, it's coming by itself, because that's what happens when you're authentic and people reach out to you for just being you and being the real you and showing up like that. So that's really beautiful to hear. Thank you so much. And really, to conclude, the last question I will ask you is for you to give our viewers a message of inspiration based on your own journey, how women can create positive influence and impact like yourself simply by accepting themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I would say, which is so important, is while you are, I think the first thing you have to do is decide that that's it. I'm done hating myself. I'm done feeling like this. And it really, I know it sounds like, oh, how is that even possible? But it really is. It really is as easy as deciding that I'm done feeling like this. Because I was feeling like how I was feeling for 10 years and I didn't speak for 10 years about it. Um, I don't think it was because I felt like, oh, I can't talk about it with my parents, or, what if they judge me? Because when I actually did talk to them, they didn't judge me at all. They're the whole reason I have reached this far, because it's because of their support. Um, but it was my own thoughts that were holding me back, that my own fears. Um, and one day I just decided, like, I'm not going to live in this horror movie every day, because that's what it was like for me. I was having very obsessive, very dark thoughts, and it felt like I was in danger all the time. Um, and yeah, I just thought enough is enough. So I think first you have to decide that I'm done hating myself, or treating myself like this. And I think the most important part of accepting yourself is accepting the toxic traits you have, the self-sabotaging parts of you, because that's where the real change is needed. And that's where it needs, that part really needs your attention. So I think, yeah, treat yourself with curiosity
Mm.
and kindness. At the same time, again, you can't bully yourself into loving yourself. And don't be afraid to speak your truth. And always remember that your vulnerabilities are, in fact, your greatest strengths. And because that's what makes you human.
Yeah.
And that shift in you it shows. It shows people, like people can see it on the outside when you make that shift, and it inspires others around you. You know, when they see it, that how is she being so honest?
Mm.
You know, um, and it makes you start thinking. I think I know. We talked about this last time, and it really moved me. This one girl that I don't think I'll ever forget, when she said something like she was being really rude. Basically, she was being very rude, very bold. She was saying what she wanted, and I was just thinking, oh, this girl is so rude. Why is she being, how can she say stuff like that? And that's, she's going to offend so many people and blah, blah, blah. And my therapist said to me, well, what was she saying that was so rude? I said, she was saying how she felt. And for me, that was rude. And that really changed everything in my head for me. Like, why is that rude? Why is it rude to be just yourself?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just be yourself, basically, which is harder to do than just me saying it. But yeah, don't just be gentle with yourself in that process. You don't have to have it all together in one day.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to actually just be yourself and show up like that. And your story is so inspirational, and it really shows and demonstrates that message. Because I agree, a lot of the times, people show up as they are expected to show up, or as they want to other people to interpret them, and they hide certain things about themselves. Because they're or they're scared, or sometimes it's driven by people, by a person's ego. But really, that isn't what you call authenticity. And credible connections are really built on that level of honesty and authenticity and showing up, like you said, such a simple thing, somebody literally just saying how they feel, feels triggering or like strange. But really, that's the most normal thing in the world that a lot of people, especially in certain groups, are not comfortable with. Because we're comfortable with people hiding away, or performing, or living by avoidant behavior, which doesn't do anybody any favors in the long term. It's really about saying what's inside and just being that person, regardless of what anyone thinks, regardless of what anyone's going to say, because that doesn't really matter anyway. Because true connections, like you said, and like you're building now on your platform, are built from being yourself and showing up with that vulnerability and the authenticity. So that's thank you so much for sharing, a snapshot of your journey and giving us some of your opinions and views. So for the benefit of our viewers, if you just want to tell people where they can find you, if they want to connect with you or be part of your peer groups or along those lines.
Yes, yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for this very nourishing and thought-provoking conversation, and because your reflections made me think a lot as well, and challenged my thoughts and ideas as well. So it helps me, keep my mind open. And yeah, I really appreciate the space that you've created. So yeah, my website is rainonme.org. We're a non-profit organization, and we do international peer support groups that are open to everybody. You don't need to be diagnosed with anything. You can just join if you want to learn about yourself and accept yourself, or you just need a community. Or you can also follow us on Instagram, which is Rain on London. So yeah, you're welcome to our space whenever you need it.
Oh, that's really lovely. I'm sure a lot of people will want to connect with you after watching this and listening to all your thoughts. And obviously, I would like to thank you as well very much for being on today's episode. It's been, like you said, a thought-provoking conversation. I'm glad I've been able to enlighten you, and you've certainly enlightened me and got me thinking outside the box. So thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. So yeah, and to our viewers, hope you've enjoyed today's session, and we look forward to seeing you next time.